In this edition of the Low Carb Paleo show, we interview Anne Fonfa. Anne is a cancer survivor, and there's nothing unusual in that, you might say, except the fact that Anne survived cancer without radiotherapy, without chemotherapy, and instead found better, more natural ways to help her body deal with the things that were trying to destroy it. So let's join Anne and Alan so that you can find out whether the information she has can help you or someone close to you.
Good morning, Anne, and welcome to the Low Carb Paleo show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely, and good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Alan. How are you?
I'm fine. Good. How's everybody?
Wonderful.
Okay, good. Good. So, Anne, I heard about you from a YouTube video that a friend of mine told me about, and I was impressed by your experience using food as a healing element against breast cancer. So I asked you to be on the show so you can maybe help our listener understand that there are actually alternatives to the typical medical way of handling cancer. So thank you for being on. Before we talk a little more in details, can you give us your background and your story?
Well, I have no medical background. My career was in sales and marketing for all different types of things, primarily toys, stationery, video. But I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I will say that in 1974, due to an extensive family history of heart disease and my boyfriend at the time as well, we decided to exercise daily, give up meat, and stop smoking. So I was traveling for business. So there were no places to eat vegetarian food, and I was having plain old salad, iceberg lettuce, crappy tomatoes, baked potato with nothing on it, really no nutrients. And I knew that, but there were really no places to get fresh or organic. So over the years, eventually I stopped traveling about 12, 15 years later, and I started focusing on eating more fruits and vegetables organically. However, at the age of 44, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was pretty shocking because here I am not eating meat. How's that going to work? But the other factor was that I had suffered most of my adult life from constipation. And I truly believe that that excess of toxicity was a great factor. I am the only person in my family that we know of to ever have breast cancer, so it's not genetic or hereditary. And probably people listening know that only 7 to 10% of breast cancer is hereditary, inherited anyway. I was not among them. At the age of 44, I didn't know anybody living with cancer. My grandfather had died of pancreatic when I was a kid. And, it was nerve-wracking. But I was suffering at the time from multiple chemical sensitivity. And my entire life was dominated by being ill anytime I smelled fragrance that people might wear on their hair, their neck, wet paint, window cleaning, house cleaning, new carpet, fake wood furniture. I mean, I was just sick all the time. And I would spend 3 or 4 days, at least part of the day in bed with my organic sheets over my head. So breast cancer, as a lot of people know, you don't really feel sick. So I didn't feel sick, and I was sick from the chemical sensitivity. And that is really what led me to decide not to take conventional treatment. I couldn't consider doing chemotherapy when anything made me ill, anything out of the norm. And aspirin would cause me a problem. I was passing out from things, and it just wasn't for me. And oddly enough, my uncle had lung cancer and died 2 years before. And I was in charge of his health, but I didn't know anything. It's just that I was the family go-to leader. And so the docs came to me and said, your uncle's going to die in a few months if he doesn't have chemo and radiation. I was like, I got to give him chemo and radiation immediately. And what do you know? He got chemo and radiation and he died pretty much right away, 3 weeks. His wife was pregnant. It was a really horrible situation. And, I remembered that as well. So a lot of things were going on in my mind at the time and I had slow growing early stage cancer. So to me, where was chemo going? So what am I going to do? And I started to think about what I might do. I joined a support group, which was great. I highly recommend it. And people were very friendly, even though I decided not to do conventional treatment. I also didn't do radiation. So what am I doing food-wise? I started to go to the farmers markets 3 times a week. I would buy the freshest possible food just down from the farm, and I was eating it mostly raw and making giant salads and having, I also at that time was eating fish, and I was having wild fish whenever possible, but occasionally there were articles in the paper saying it was hard to get wild fish, and I was a little concerned about that. But this was all prior to Fukushima and the Gulf incident. I don't really have like that shrimp anymore, which I was occasionally having. So more and more I was eating the freshest possible fruits and vegetables, some whole grains, nuts and seeds, brown rice. That was about it. I also was exercising every day. And for me, not a religious or a spiritual person, but I believe in helping people. And I saw pretty much right away that my energy level was higher than everyone else. They were all going through chemo. They were all going through radiation. They were exhausted. They were hairless. They were, they were just sick in every possible way. And I wasn't. So my energy was going toward, let's take a walk together. Maybe we should do yoga. I was researching information for myself. And I realized fairly early on that people who were doing conventional treatment could benefit from the same kinds of things that I was doing. It seemed to me that everybody would benefit if they ate more fruits and vegetables, took a walk every day or some physical activity, did yoga, stress reduction, all those things. It was a philosophy immediately. I started to do coffee enemas in 1995 because I had my first of a series of local recurrence. And I realized that I had to do more things to get myself in shape. But the interesting thing is, every time I had a recurrence, and I had quite a few, they grew at a slower rate than the original tumors. So I would say to the doctors who were following me with blood work, whatever they were doing, and I would say, hey, this is good, right? I mean, things are looking better because it's slow. Got no support at all for that, none. I mean, there was not one single doctor who was willing to step out and say, yes, you're actually doing better because here it is slow. But I had hired a new surgeon after the first surgery, which had been a lumpectomy. And she gave me a second lumpectomy. And she said, this is really the same set of tumors which always were there, and they're growing slower. And but again, no real support. And it's interesting because I mentioned my chemical sensitivity was the reason that I went in the direction that I did with non-conventional or alternative treatment. This month, early September, I was at a meeting in San Francisco sponsored by the American Society of Clinical Oncology Breast Cancer Symposium, and I had a poster which was great to present. And this doctor said to me, oh, it's a good thing that you, with multiple chemical sensitivity, did not take chemotherapy. The first person in 21 plus years of being in this situation who actually recognized that chemical sensitivity would not go well with chemotherapy. And it's kind of amazing because I might have died, I think. And that was my fear, of course, that it would kill me to take the treatment.
Right. So in one way, your uncle passing away also kind of gave you a hint that chemotherapy was probably not the answer either.
Well, what I saw from that was it didn't always work. It wasn't always called for, and they exaggerate the results. I mean, they told me he would die in 3 months if he didn't have chemo, and he died in 3 weeks when he did have chemo and radiation, and he suffered a lot too. So the whole thing was just not for me. The combination of that, and I didn't have anything to go on. I didn't know anybody else who'd been in my situation. But since those times, the early days, I've met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people who've made other choices. And I've tried to be a bridge. It's been my view that most people are going to get treated conventionally because they don't know better. They don't know anything else. And I wanted to be able to inform and educate as many people as possible. When I set up the website, it was June 1999. There was not a lot of information available for people who wanted to make healthier choices. There were individuals, my friends, some of my friends among them, who were going toward organic and who were being more physically active and the things that I thought were important. But the general population, not so much. And over time, I think it's gotten worse. And when I talk to doctors, I say, look, most people are just not even well enough to start your conventional treatment, which is really healthy to get through it. It's torture. And people suffer so much. The old style was, hey, suck it up. We're curing your cancer and you're complaining because you have neuropathy. You can't feel your hands and feet. You're numb. But yeah, that's a real situation for people. So my goal was to inform people there are things you can do that might reduce those problems. And I'm still doing that today because still majority of people are taking conventional treatment and suffering mightily. And I don't like that. So, but I've also kept it my business and made it my business to help the people who are interested in alternatives. I tell them about the information. We call it possibilities. The website, through Facebook, through Twitter, we give people those connections and ideas so that they can make the best and most informed decision. And that's always been our slogan, make more informed decisions, because you can.
I wanted to ask you, on your website, I saw a term, CAM, C-A-M. Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, it's complementary and alternative medicine. It was what things were called, they used to be called unconventional therapies, and then it became complementary and alternative. And now complementary has moved more toward integrative, and the doctors who practice integrative medicine like to call it that. And many doctors in that field have asked me not to say alternative, but I can't stay away from that, because to me, even though it's not a great term, but alternative is stuff that isn't mainstream, isn't conventional, and almost always blasted without enough information or evidence. In fact, I created this slogan for our advocates, and I train and mentor a lot of advocates. We say, what is your evidence for saying no to that? Because you can say no with no evidence. And I require evidence to talk about stuff. And I think everyone else should too. I think the doc should not be able to say, oh, no, forget it. They have to provide the evidence and the reason.
What are the different alternatives besides food? So you have food, and then I understand you also follow the Dr. Gerson protocol?
Yes, I went to Mexico and I did the Gerson Therapy. It's 13 juices a day, coffee enemas, which I had already started, but I was only doing one a day. The Gerson program is 4 or 5 a day. And it's also a bunch of other things. And, they have a website with information on it. I went to Mexico, and again, I was healthier than everyone else. The people who in those days went to Mexico were really, really sick with cancer. And they'd already most of them had a lot of conventional treatment. Their bodies were exhausted. Their immune systems were shot. Nowadays, back then, the immune system wasn't considered important with cancer. It's considered, who needs the immune system? But obviously, we all know that's critically important. And now it's been understood. It's more understood that the immune system is an essential factor. And I use that as a wedge to talk to conventional doctors to say, hey, if immunology is important, then building yourself up for treatment or to get better health is clearly and critically important. That worked for me. I was doing not just Gerson, and again, I was the healthiest person at the clinic, but I saw people come in wheelchairs who walked away. I saw people who had giant tumors which shrunk. For me, what I think happened was, well, it's twofold. I had candida, systemic candida, which was part of the chemical sensitivity and the other issues. And that was started to resolve within a day of getting to the clinic, drinking the juices, doing the enemas. And it was odd because I had been afraid. When I got there, I knew what it was intellectually, but hearing I was going to have orange juice every day, I said to the doctor, carrot juice, excuse me. Carrots are sweet. I don't think I can have carrots. And he said, you're in a hospital. Take advantage of it, see what happens. And literally having sweet carrots started to reduce the candida, which, responds to sugar. But carrots are not sugar. Carrots are food. And there's some feeling that when you juice it, it's more sugar. But in fact, for my body, at least, and I don't think I'm so unusual, it was beneficial. And the candida started to recede after 8 years. So I knew the difference. And then my mother had come with me as my companion. And it was quite ridiculous because, everyone's saying, goodbye, Anne. It was great to meet you. And Lorraine, I'll pay you to stay with me. My mother was like a very amusing, very witty, and she just cracked everybody up. A lot of people are dying there, let's face it, but also some people are getting a new shot in life. And she was just making everybody laugh every day. And as we all know, laughter is a great medicine. But we left and we went home, and, I was not cured of cancer. I had a recurrence again. I had a series of recurrences. In fact, in the end, I had 25 tumors on the left side. I had 3 lumpectomies, a mastectomy, and 2 chest wall surgeries to remove tumors. In 1997, I was told I was stage 4. And I was irate. What is that based on? Nothing. They said to me, well, it might be a metastatic recurrence. I said, might be, and you're telling me I'm stage 4? It's like, why don't you stab me? That's ridiculous. You can't tell somebody it might be, therefore we're going to. So I wouldn't accept any conventional treatment at that point at all. I just thought that was ridiculous. And I'd already had a lot of surgeries, and my surgeon, lovely woman, said to me, if we have another surgery, we have to have plastic surgery. And as a chemical sensitive person, no can do.
The candida actually brings me to another concept which is becoming more and more accepted, is the gut health. If we take care of our gut, which is our first line of defense against outside toxins and everything, then we are more likely to survive. So have you done anything to support your like probiotics or fermented foods or anything like this?
Yeah, I have sauerkraut every day. I have probiotics every day. I recommend them to people. I think it's terrific to have that kimchi, all things like that. And, I mentioned I was constipated for a lot of my life. As a kid, I had stomach trouble and it never got any better. And I know that was a great cause of the problem. I was toxic. I had all sorts of problems with that. And I'm not, I believe the chemical sensitivity, the candida were related to that as well. And we know if you have breast cancer is estrogen related. And if you have circulating estrogen that can't exit, because I barely ever had an exit. And I went to mainstream doctors. Oh, twice a week? Oh, that's fine, dear. Oh, no, it's all in your mind. It's your nerves. Like, what am I nervous about? This is crazy. But, it's still been problematic. I mean, clearly I had some physical as well as other health problems because this has been a very long journey to get good health. Now, I still do a coffee enema every day. I am able to go to the bathroom first thing in the morning. And one of the first pages that I put onto our website was how to deal with constipation. But I've gathered information about 4 or 5 things that I talk to people about. Namely, when you sit on the throne, elevate your feet. I used to tell people to the height of 2 phone books, but, it doesn't work anymore because people don't use phone books. Massage the outside of your thighs. Massage in a circular motion starting from the lower right up and under the rib cage and down the left side. Drink 2 glasses of water, 11 ounces of water first thing in the morning. You can add garlic to it. You can add lemon juice to it. Kiwi is helpful. A lot of things that came across my desk over the years. And I share that with people because it's actually a very widespread problem that most people don't talk about.
In that line of thought, have you considered or have looked into food allergies that might cause the problem?
Part of what I did with applied kinesiology was to discover what my food allergies were, and there were many. I spent 6 years not eating a whole variety of foods. It was an odd combination. I still to this day don't eat cauliflower, and I don't eat pears. I was also allergic to cucumbers. I was off wheat for 6 years. I can have cucumbers now. I don't seem to react, but I just had a reaction to cauliflower all this time, and I didn't even have that much, luckily. And it was organic from one of my board members' garden. She made this beautiful preparation. I couldn't eat it. And then I was allergic to, for a period of time, basically just about everything. And 6 years, I didn't eat most things. I had a very, very basic, simple diet. And then the majority of the allergies went away.
Have you looked into maybe allergies to grain, wheat, gluten, or any kind of grain, beans kind of allergies, maybe?
Well, I'm pretty much regular now, and I go more than once a day, and I have the coffee enema, so I feel like everything's under control. I don't think I need gluten-free. I think that would have been obvious to me over time, and I don't feel like it has gone that way. But at the time that I stopped having wheat, the doctor said to me on Monday, stop eating wheat for a week. I was sick for the whole week. Everything was wrong. I had nasal drip, diarrhea, everything, rashes. And I called him up and I said, what did you do to me? What have you done? And he said, you're toxic and it's leaving your body. But after 6 years, I've been fine with wheat. I don't have any of the symptoms that I used to have. My chemical sensitivity reduced, but I'll explain that in a little bit when we get back to the cancer story.
Are you currently vegetarian, vegan? What is your current diet and how do you go about it? Can you explain that to our listeners?
What I tell people all the time, it's my rules. I call myself a vegan with mercy. The mercy is if I suddenly feel like I have to have wild-caught sardines, or if I see wild salmon and I want to have it, I'll have it. I don't do it a lot, but I do it occasionally. And 2 weeks ago, just about 3 times that week, I had fish for dinner or lunch, mostly lunch. I use a bigger lunch. I felt like it. And when I talk to people, I try to explain to them, you can't feel terrible if that's your choice. It's your choice. You can't go have a chocolate chip cookie 5 times a week. That's not your diet. But if your program is mostly fruits and vegetables, but today I feel a different need, you go with it. It's my rules. I never ding myself for that. It's about what I feel comfortable with. I have not, however, had red meat, chicken, or turkey in many, many years. And it's interesting because, there's somebody, Peter D'Adamo had eat right for your blood type. I'm O positive. So theoretically, I could be a big meat eater. But I stopped eating meat in 1974. and I really never went back to it. So because of that, I don't see myself, it was so long ago, I just don't have a taste for it anymore. But fish, yes, and I want to have the best quality when I have it, and it's complicated because most restaurants, well, I barely go out to eat because I only want organic, so I don't want genetically modified anything in my diet.
I'm curious, did you, as a vegetarian, did you use a lot of like soy maybe that would have influenced your estrogen levels?
I was eating organic tofu pretty often. But you see, I believe that the research is generally done on, I know it used to be done on genetically modified candy bars, soy oil, which is always genetically modified and is not food. And from my perspective, that's not really soy. So when someone says, don't eat soy, what they mean is don't take genetically modified soy oil into your diet, which you have to read a lot of labels to see what's going on.
Right.
I mean, I see vitamins with soy oil. I call the company up and I say, hey, is that organic? And mostly it's not. Occasionally it is. Mostly it's not. And things with soy oil, just not okay.
So besides diet, what other alternative choices are you using? Acupuncture, massage therapy, anything like this?
Yes, I am a strong believer in acupuncture. I was diagnosed in January of 1993 with cancer. But prior to that, a very close friend of mine became an acupuncturist. And to be friendly, I went to see her, to be nice to her. And in 3 months of her needling me, I stopped having menstrual cramps. That was like a miracle. I had 30 years of torture stopped, And so I thought, wow, acupuncture is incredible. The funny thing is I didn't even realize it was alternative because it was my friend doing it, so that was perfectly reasonable. Anyway, she continued to treat me through the years of my diagnosis. In fact, she said to me going in, if you do chemo, I have some herbs that will help. If you do radiation, I have some herbs that will help. So I always knew that there were possibilities in Chinese medicine. I also had an applied kinesiologist, as I mentioned. I was having also something called Jin Shinjitsu, which is a Japanese hands-on treatment. Very, very nice. And there's also a self-help mode, which I was doing. I did all sorts of things. I used magnets. In fact, when I still had a breast and I was having all the tumors, I would put a magnet within my bra, wear it every day and at night. I thought it might help. I didn't know, it didn't hurt, but I thought it might help. I don't know what kept me from developing metastatic disease while I developed 25 tumors on the left side, but I didn't. And I also tried metabolic enzyme therapy. I had just a lot of stuff. I tried. I was holding gemstones in a particular pattern. I was told about you hold for 20 minutes in your right hand if you're a woman, different combo 20 minutes in your left hand if you're a man. My mother, and I and my husband were holding them we'd hang out for 20 minutes and do this. All sorts of things to stay well, to boost my immune system. The tumors kept coming, but my health never disintegrated, got better and better, and I felt stronger and more able until the point in December of 1998. I was at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, which is a big meeting every year for doctors. And a lot of cancer patient advocates now go. At the time, some patient advocates were going. And I was there, and I met this Chinese herbalist who lived in New York City, and I lived in New York City at the time. And he said to me, your friend told me about your circumstance. I'd like to try to help you. The fact that it was Chinese medicine, my friend was an acupuncturist, I felt okay. But it was a big thing. And we started talking in April of 1999, and I decided I would do it. He said to me, you have to give up. I was also taking a lot of vitamin C powder, not IV. Although I had some IV at the Gerson clinic when I went a second time also. And I also had Coley's toxins, which didn't have any effect on me, but the two people in the ICU with me, one had an no surgery breast tumor reduced overnight. And on the other side was a guy with a gigantic tumor on his neck, reduced overnight. And me, I had these teeny, teeny, tiny breast lumps still there. Anyway, so in April of 99, this Chinese herbalist says to me, you have to stop doing everything you're doing to take my herbs. And I said, no, it's not going to happen. No can do. I've kept alive for 7 years. Not going to happen. So we negotiated, and finally he said, okay, do whatever you have to do. So I had an MRI, showed that I had involvement on the chest wall. I started taking the herbs. Day one, I developed hives over my whole body. And of course, that was kind of scary. My friend, the acupuncturist, was away. I couldn't reach her. We didn't have cell phones in 99. So I couldn't get her. I went to a conventional dermatologist. Of course, they gave me antihistamines. I'm chemically sensitive, so everything works wrong for me. So that didn't work out. I couldn't breathe. I was sick. Anyway, in 2 days, 3 days, the hives went away. But what I realized was my symptoms for chemical sensitivity completely changed in those 3 days, and the intensity reduced by about 65%. So right now in my life, I'm still chemically sensitive, but I have a normal life. I can function, I go places, I can do all the things I couldn't do before. I carry a mask with me, and I do put it on when I fly because I'm trapped in a vinyl case, and I'm allergic to vinyl and plastic and leather and, everything like that. And people on a plane insist on putting a lot of fragrance on when you're trapped in a metal box. However, but I'm way better than I used to be, and I can do it. I couldn't function before. It was a really, really big problem. I would sometimes go to meetings. I want to be a strong voice of advocacy, and I have to wear my mask. I go up to the microphone and take my mask off for 3 minutes so I could say something and put it right back on. It was crazy. But now I don't have to. I mean, my life is way better. But those Chinese herbs, that was a one dose. And then I took them for, at the end of 10 months, he said to me, his name is George Wang from New York City. He said to me, "Oh, you can stop." And I said, I just think I'll do it a little longer. So 4 more months, finally said, you got to stop. Now, the prescription changed fairly often. So I was going to Chinatown and getting the prescription and cooking the herbs, making an herbal tea, which I liked. I loved the whole process. And then I had an MRI. And I get a phone call from the MRI reader, an MD. She said, "Why did you have a chest wall MRI? What is this?" So I tell her the whole long, sad 7-year story. And she says, "I have a friend with a similar, I had invasive lobular, not your typical breast cancer. Only 10% have this." And she said, "I have a friend in the same situation." So she calls me back in an hour. She says, "I just don't see anything." But, everybody, you want your own doctor to tell you. So I had a scheduled appointment with my breast surgeon, Deborah Axelrod, in New York City, September 12th, 2001, New York City, right? So September 11th, 2001 was the day the World Trade Towers were attacked. No cars, no buses, no subways. I walked down to the hospital. I had called. They said they thought she'd be there. So I went down there, and I'm waiting and waiting. And finally she comes, and she says, "I'm going to give you a diagnosis of no NDD, no discernible disease." Now, to this day, I've never heard that diagnosis from anyone else. It's usually NED, no evidence of disease. But, everybody dinged me because I didn't do chemo, I didn't do radiation, I didn't do hormones. So I have NDD, no discernible disease. But I took it. And then she said, "Could I announce this?" Let people know. Anyway, when I left the hospital, I'm standing at 15th Street and 7th Avenue. So looking down the street to the World Trade Center area, all in smoke, giant smoke plumes, and I started to cry. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm alive. I'm going to live. Everything's okay. And people rush up and they're hugging me. "Oh, it'll be okay. Don't worry. We'll be fine." And I'm the opposite. Everybody's grieving, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm living." It was really wild. So a very emotional thing. And, that was years ago already, too. So told stage 4 in 1997, originally diagnosed in January 93, and shown to be clear September 2001, now 13 years later. Yeah. So everything that I did, and I still do a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm a strong believer in that. I have acupuncture quite often. I still eat very, very carefully. I try to eat mostly organic. Even when I travel, I bring a lot of food with me. Everybody knows that I'm going to bring my own lunch. I'm not going to eat the crappy food you put out in your hotel. If you're a volunteer for my organization, you expect to pick me up and drive me to the health food store in your town if I get there. That's my life. And I still do coffee enemas when I'm in my own space. I don't do it traveling anymore, but I did in the beginning. When I was on the Gerson program, it's 18 months on the program, and I actually went to a conference up in Canada in 1997, and then again in '99. So my current life is following a pretty strong program. I exercise every day. I'm always a happy person. I give people hope because I'm always hopeful. I believe there's something that will work for everybody, and it's not just one thing. So my organization was founded, the website went up, AnnieAppleseedProject.org, June 1999. Had millions of people visit it, which is really cool. But my strength, my background was in sales and marketing. So what I did was reach out to everybody I knew. I always made sure to work the room. By that, I mean I went around and said hello to everybody at a cancer meeting, every advocate, every person, every patient, every doctor, try to meet people, give them my cards, and then interest them in either linking to our website, visiting our website, or telling people about it. So I developed a whole thing where I have these postcards, and the postcard is all about information. This particular postcard is out only 2 years, but for many, many years we had a postcard with 5 things that said, eat more fruits and vegetables, be physically active, learn to relax and enjoy life, detox, and take dietary supplements. We've now made that into something we call 3 Steps for Health. That's this part. And 3 Steps for Health, we also have a very simple version. It's sort of the man's version. Goes in the pocket. And it's eat more fruits and eat 1 more fruit and 1 more vegetable every day. Be physically active and take 7 deep breaths before bedtime or before treatment or before any stressful situation. And the medical profession, finally, oncologists like it because it's not doing anything except making a person healthier. We see it, we call it 3 Steps for Health, but after you take the steps, you'll want to do more. I know this for sure. People have already told me how successful it's been for them just taking control. On diagnosis, everybody's crazed and they want to do something. And here's simple thing you can do. So the organization's now very active on Facebook. Just last week, we had 28,000 visitors to our Facebook page. We're on Twitter. I have an e-newsletter that goes out to about 10,000 people, which I write, and it always covers one thing about risk reduction, some things about complementary or integrative therapies, things that can be done along with conventional treatment, because again, most people are going to do that. And the third area is always about what's happening in the alternative world, stuff that is not recommended by your doctor, but has some evidence base, has some history, and has some good outcomes. I mean, for me, Chinese medicine worked for me. But Chinese medicine, it's a 5,000 or 6,000 year tradition. And in the Western, they want to look at a prescription which has about 20 herbs and take the active element of 1 herb and call it medicine. But it's never going to work because it's not appropriate. A Chinese prescription needs to be the entirety and not the active element. I've argued this at conferences all the time. But I persist in going to medical meetings, scientific meetings, and raising issues because I think they have to be heard. And I'm good with it. I mean, I don't mind banging my head against the wall. I've been doing it for 20 years. But as somebody emailed me today or said on Facebook, the world's catching up. I mean, now everybody does yoga. When I told my original oncologist that I was going to do yoga, he said, yoga, are you trying to kill yourself? And he really meant it. You're trying to kill yourself. Incredible. So that's changed. People, we know now absolutely that exercise is critical. It helps with fatigue, it helps build your immune system and so on. And eating more fruits and vegetables, eating organic whenever possible, that's good. And I also tell people, I suggest to people, when you go into a store or a restaurant, don't ask them if they carry organic. Ask them what organic foods they have. In a restaurant, I say, what organic stuff are you serving? Because that makes them understand that they must be serving organic to be modern and to be with it and to be okay. And for me, critically important. But a lot of people like that idea. It works.
So it makes feel good for you to have gone from that place and now you're being able to help, thousands and probably even millions of people all over the world. And, in one, not feeling alone, 2, knowing there are actually alternatives to conventional medicine, and education, which is the most important part. You let people know what's out there, what's available, without preaching, just give them alternative choices. So how does that feel?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I wake up every day feeling good. One of the things we developed starting in 2008 was an educational conference. And we've been bringing in speakers from all over the world. We don't pay anybody. Sometimes we pay the hotel room, but we're not we're an all volunteer organization. And that we is a lot of royal we. It's like I do most of the work, but we have great volunteers who help with the conference. And I have great people who hand out our postcards all over the place. Anywhere that we can send it, we want to. And if people want to, they can email me from the website, and I will send postcards to their snail address. But the conference, since 2008, it's originally had about 100 people. Now we're going up to 250, but we really don't want more than that. It's an intimate atmosphere. We serve only organic food. It's wonderful food, local farmers, beautiful produce, a lot of donations from chefs around our community who want their food to be seen, healthy stuff. We give away dietary supplements, organic skincare products, things like that, in a reusable bag. Greatly encourage stopping using plastic bags. We're environmentally conscious as well. But it's a way of networking, and people could meet online. We could have webinars, but they tell me over and over again that actually being face-to-face with people in similar situations is so empowering that we can't stop doing it.
Speaking of supplements, do you have any particular recommendation for people?
Yeah, I think everyone should take probiotics, everybody, no matter what their health status. I think everyone should take fish oil. I think most people need curcumin or turmeric, and I use it as a spice in everything. I use it in my green drink every day. I take a green drink too. I think there's probably, there's many that work for people with cancer. Resveratrol is an excellent one. CoQ10, very important for the heart, the gums, and protecting your heart with chemotherapy, critical. I think everyone should be on CoQ10. And nowadays with the statin drugs, if you don't take CoQ10, you will really be ill down the road. So that's important. But there's plenty of them that are really quite useful. I use flaxseed oil every day. I use fish oil every day in my breakfast. I use IP6, which I think is good. At our conferences, we have the patient panel where people talk about what they do. And we had a gentleman talk about IP6. He had neck cancer, very bad stuff. And the IP6, he said, made his radiation journey absolutely bearable. And so many people suffer greatly from that. So, depending on the circumstance there, but I think the basics really are probiotics, fish oil, turmeric, curcumin, which is one thing, CoQ10, resveratrol. That would be the basics, I think, for most people.
Right. What do you typically suggest to support the immune system?
Well, I use a green drink every day. Now, that's a category. It's not the title of a product, but I have only organic. It's powdered. It usually has some kind of algae, spirulina or chlorella. I use chlorella every day, too. In my case, I use a green drink and a red drink. I'm also taking a capsule, fruit and vegetable capsule. I'm covering every base. I mean, I don't know what's specifically working for me, and I'm in a good position. I can afford to do whatever. My husband and I talk about this. Whatever it takes for my health, his health too. He's a champion athlete at 71. He's was Florida State racquetball champion twice. He plays ball every day. So we want to stay as healthy and as youthful as we can. It's very important to us. So I do everything. Like I said, I eat almost all organic, and I shudder to go into a standard restaurant. I don't want to do it. I really don't like it. I know they have genetically modified foods, and I don't call them foods. They're faux foods, just not real. So yeah, green drink every single morning. I make a fresh juice. This morning I made organic green apple, carrot, ginger, and for me garlic added. And garlic's really important. I think everyone should have that. Yeah, I put garlic in everything. I think I would have garlic with a fruit. I mean, I don't care, So I like garlic a lot. I have garlic for breakfast. When I go to an Indian restaurant, which is one of the few places I will go, even if it's not organic, they love that I come in with my garlic and eat it with their food. They think it's a riot. And they all tell me it's really good at breakfast, So that's why I have it with my fruit juice in the morning.
Where do you see yourself and your organization in a few years?
Well, we're all volunteer.
Plans?
Yeah, not really. We're all volunteer, and we just want to keep reaching people, and I want to network with groups. So I try to go to conferences every year of different organizations so that I can bring our information and introduce more people to it. Social media has been amazing for us. If people are interested in our conference, the website has all the information on who the speakers are and the titles of people's talks. It's great information. I'm happy with that. I mean, I don't want to have an office. It's in my house. Everything's simple. Doesn't cost a lot of money, because then you have to fundraise and your organization takes on a different tone. Then it's more about fundraising. It's more about having events. It's more, the newsletter becomes filled with, here's our golf tournament, which I'm never going to do because of environmental issues. So we're about providing information on a steady basis, and people contact us for individual information. I'm willing to do that, but it's not advice, because I'm not a doctor. I have nothing. It's not advice. I just give you possibilities. What you do with it, you're on your own. And, I don't make a single penny if people do or not do what I say. I mean, it goes, can go in any direction, and I'm fine with it. But I'm happy with the way it's going. I mean, seriously, reaching 28,000 people a week, having 10,000 people on our email list. And I know that they're sharing the information. I know this. And unfortunately, every single day, there are new people with cancer who need the information. But, we recently had an article about me and my circumstances in the Chicago Tribune, which is a really big paper, and I know that's circulating too. I mean, I get to see I get to see every day how many hits we have on the website and on Facebook, and I get notice from Twitter, new people are following. So it's working. It's going just the way we need it to. Of course, I would like 100% saturation, get every single person with cancer the day they're diagnosed, but that's not going to happen yet.
Can you tell us how anybody can reach you and your website, Facebook page, so on and so forth?
Yeah, the website is AnnieAppleseedProject.org. The Facebook page is facebook.com/AnnieAppleseedProject. And our Twitter handle is @AnnieAppleseed. From the website, they can email us or they can send us a message on Facebook. I respond to everyone. Like I said, I love to send our cards out. If people want to help out, that's what they can do. send us their snail address and we'll mail the cards out and let other people know.
Going back to where you started, really, sort of chemical sensitivity, do you think that had anything to do with you being more susceptible to cancer?
No one knows exactly what causes chemical sensitivity, but it's seriously known as an immune breakdown. So my immune system was harmed in some way, and I don't know what way. I don't know which came first. I began to react to things. I don't know if I started doing that because exposure was the tipping point. I was toxic because I never went to the bathroom twice a week. Not okay, but that's what they told me. So I know that my system was not what it should have been. And I think that all those things combined, but I don't know what the cause was. And I believe a lot of people with cancer have candida. That's not really studied, but I think, just from general conversation, I think a lot of people's systems are out of balance, and mine was seriously out of whack.
And it obviously sort of curtailed you from going down, thankfully, from going down the chemical treatment path. Now, you also said that your uncle had both chemo and radio, and he died within 3 weeks. Do you think there's a possibility he may have also been chemically sensitive?
I don't know. There was no indication, but he had advanced disease by the time he got in the doctor's hands. He'd had lung cancer that was metastasized to the brain. And then, as often happens, the lung tumor healed up, and it was just in the brain. But they're able to tell where the cancer started. So he already had a big tumor, inoperable, whatever. I mean, with what I know now, I might have sent him to Brzezinski in Houston, Texas. But at the time, I didn't know a single thing about cancer, except that my grandfather had died of pancreatic. But that was long ago in 1966, and I was diagnosed in 93, and my poor uncle in 91. So, and he was a smoker, and he smoked, well, once he was in the hospital, he couldn't smoke anymore, but he smoked throughout, knowing he had something going wrong. He was living in a fine country, and we had to bring him back. It was quite a big thing. He flew into the airport. He was met by an ambulance, taken to the hospital. He got married in the hospital. It was wild. But he didn't live very long, and it was sad.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked that question is there must be a lot of people who go through chemo and radio who also are chemically sensitive, particularly to the sort of very harsh chemicals that are used in those treatments.
It's very hard to track because I've tried to track the value of chemo, the outcomes. It's really not studied in any meaningful way. And if someone dies in treatment, hey, they had cancer. What do you expect? It's very, very difficult. You don't know if their liver was harmed or it was cancer. So, it's just not tracked properly. And death certificates are not written clearly or appropriately in a lot of cases. So it's very hard to know. I mean, I've asked for these kind of things, and other advocates too, but it's not followed in a way that's meaningful. I mean, it's not to the benefit of the pharma companies. They don't want people to use less. No. And they don't want people to discover. And, oncologists often say to me, you didn't have any chemo and you're alive? They just don't know that it's possible because people who don't do it don't come and talk to them. That's why I do it. That's why I go to those meetings and I tell them, hey, I didn't do chemo. But, I'm not special. I mean, I just was lucky. It was a combination of circumstances that worked out in my favor, and I survived, and, almost 22 years later, and I'm really happy about it. But I'm not special, so other people could do it too. But they don't have to do what I did. They have to form their own way of going. And I'm okay with whatever they choose. I just want them to choose wisely and to know the facts. And once people hear them, I think they're more likely, to want to do it in a beneficial way and protect themselves. Why suffer? Why have toxicities that last the rest of your life? Yeah, it's crazy. People with neuropathy. Taking a painkiller for neuropathy, that's not a solution. No. That's a horror story waiting to happen. Then you'll be addicted to painkillers. Where are we going with that? Florida has an amendment coming up in November for medical marijuana, and I am seriously hoping it passes in our state too, because that is something that can help in a lot of ways. And I don't want people to suffer. That's my key point. People shouldn't suffer. You have cancer, that sucks. It's really bad. It's not what we want. But why suffer from treatment on top of that? It's the old style. The old style was just deal with it, but we don't have to be that way anymore. We shouldn't be. No.
And there are plenty of better ways of treating cancer, some of which you've covered today.
Well, yeah, and there's lots more. More. We've on our website, we've pages of that. I originally came out with a 63-page document before the internet that I was handing around at breast cancer specific events because that's all I was doing in the beginning. until I realized that everything could work for everybody in any type of circumstance. And that's been, really useful. But those 63 pages were really alternative therapies. Some of them have been approved over time. I mean, look at hypothermia, heating the body before chemo or during chemo and during radiation. You can have less treatment. But again, Big Pharma is not a supporter of less. Why should they make less money? I mean, seriously, business decisions are made. Very nice people work for the companies. I've met them. They're charming. They're lovely. They're caring. They're family members. But business decisions are made behind closed doors. And those decisions, they don't want less treatment. That's not good for business. And people have to really see that. It's business.
It's business, yeah. It's all about money. My research says that excess of sugar or any kind of refined sugar is also extremely bad for cancer. What's your answer? What's your position?
First of all, I'm not opposed to meat for people. I just think they should have from free-range animals following the Weston A. Price Foundation's plans. We have had them at our conferences. They've been exhibitors. We've had speakers talk about it. It just happens that a long time ago I stopped eating meat. That was just me. I say to people, I have never seen any particular diet work across the board. Everybody's a little different. It's a personal choice, but I would only eat healthy from healthy animals. To me, the slaughtering of animals, the way we do it now, everything's horrible. Hormones, antibiotics. In terms of sugar, I've had this conversation with so many people. We have a thing called the PET scan where they give you glucose, which is sugar, and it goes in your body and your cancer cells light up. Wow, they love sugar. So why would you have sugar in your life? It's insane. I tell people all the time, the first thing you do is stop all sugar, all soda, all junk food. And don't tell me you drink diet soda because that's poison. People do that to me all the time. They say, I don't drink soda. I drink diet soda. It's all wrong. So I say, no soda. Anything they call junk, that's exactly what it is. And your body says, what is this stuff? It's not really food. It's making me sick. So no sugar of any kind, no junk, no soda, no diet soda. That's clearly really critical. That's the only food thing that I tell everybody, the same thing. Just get rid of those things immediately. People are desperate. I said, if you take a bite of fruit, you don't want a cookie. If you take a bite of a cookie, you won't have the fruit. So you got to switch. If you're hungry, have a plum, have an apple, have a kiwi, have a banana. You don't want a cookie with a fruit in your mouth.
And of course, no fast food, no junk food.
Right.
No processed food.
Yeah, and people know when you start reading a label, it's ugly. I mean, I have a packaged cracker that was given to a friend of mine who was in the hospital he had open heart surgery, and the cracker had high fructose corn syrup and partially hydrogenated oil. I mean, what are they thinking? Insane. So I tell people, when you read your label, if there's stuff that you can't pronounce, that's not food, not food. And they don't make it for your body. They make it last on the shelf for 2 to 5 years. So why would you want that? Artificial anything, not okay. Someone like me, I know, I can breathe it and know it's bad for me. Can't have that, real food all the time.
Keep it simple, stick to fresh food only and good quality food. So,
and then, people say stuff like, I can't afford it. But nowadays, farmers markets, there are buying clubs, and you're worth it. You're worth it. You're just killing yourself slower if you have junky food. It's not real food and it's not okay. And, if you go to lunch at a meeting, you go to a cancer meeting, right, and they serve lunch, a box lunch. Well, what does it have? It has some kind of sandwich or a roll, bag of chips. A bag of chips? What is that? I say, hello, that's deep fried food, kids. It's deep fried food. Do not have that. And I'm always slipping notes under people's plates. Don't drink that soda. And I covered them with napkins at meetings. I covered them with tablecloths. I try to make it really obvious that soda is extremely unhealthy all the time. Not good for you. Right. Don't eat the chips. Don't drink the soda. Deep fried, no. Anything with additives, no.
You could always tell people that complain about the cost of eating good quality food and say, compare that to the cost of chemotherapy.
Yeah, but here's, the sad thing is insurance covers most of chemo. It doesn't cover real food. Of course it should. And I'm working right now to get Medicare, CMS, to cover Medicare, to cover acupuncture for Medicare and Medicaid. Wouldn't that be better? And people could have a choice. And everyone on conventional treatment should have acupuncture. I really think it helps a ton. It's very, very useful.
Have you seen an upsurge in the amount of cancers that are reported as we've suffered an increase in GMOs?
There was just a recent thing that more GI cancers, colon cancers among younger ages, children in particular. That's insane. I mean, children to get colon cancer,
Yeah.
insane. GI cancer, crazy. We always knew they got brain and leukemia, and now it's becoming other cancers. So I think that's the canary in the coal mine kind of report, that GI or colon cancers. And I think, again, it isn't looked at particularly. It's very easy to deny, say, oh, there's no evidence on that. But really what that means in full longhand is, oh, we weren't looking for that, so we haven't found it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if we don't look, we'll never find it.
No.
So let's not look.
Yeah.
But, I've said that for years. And it used to be that people would say, oh, there's no evidence. And I go, oh, well, there's no evidence. But you know what? There's no evidence if you don't look for it.
No.
And they carefully don't look for it, you won't find it. But we're finding it anyway.
Yeah.
It can't not be found at this point. It's obvious.
That to me is probably one of the darkest parts of the food and the pharma industry, is that they are purposely not looking for things that they know are going to bring their practices and their products into question.
Yeah, and they have a lot of money to spend to hold that down. I mean, there was some studies that came out that showed damage to animals. Why do we experiment with animals if we immediately turn around and ignore the studies? Oh, it was only mice, it was only rabbits, it was only dogs, it was only, then stop killing the little animals. But those studies matter because they are a reflection on what's going to happen. It just happens real fast with animals compared to people.
Yeah.
But, it's been, look, we have a rise in allergies, we have a rise in chemical sensitivity, we have a rise in, in colorectal and GI. This is related. There's no question. And when I say to people, what's the cause? It's everywhere. It's everything. I mean, I know I have a plastic-free home. Most people don't. Everything in my house is real wood. I have no fake wood. I can't live with that stuff. Everybody else has got outgassing everything all the time. And plastic this and microwave that. We didn't talk about microwave. I only open mine to do a sponge now and then. That's it. And I was once asked to speak in front of a group of seniors, and it was a luncheon, right? And she said to me right before I spoke, she said, "Well, you have 5 minutes." 5 minutes. I mean, I'm a senior too. We could spend more than 5 minutes on the topic. Just 5 minutes. So I said to the people, "Don't use your microwave. Just stop using that. Plan ahead. All you have to do is start cooking a half an hour earlier. You don't need your microwave. You know you're going to have dinner. It's not like it's a surprise. Make a plan." I said, people, you come home from work, you're going to make a bowl of pasta, put the water up, go upstairs and take your shower, whatever it is, take your shoes off, and then come back down and make real food. How long does it take to chop up fruits and vegetables? Not that long. We got this mindset, oh, it's so easy, open this package, it's nonsense.
It's all about convenience, but convenience is killing us, when we're using prepackaged food loaded with chemicals, we're using microwaves that destroys the nutritional value of the food. Everything we do, and a lot of people don't seem to realize that the home environment is actually more toxic in many cases than walking outside and breathing the smog, because they use all sorts of chemicals in the house that are not healthy. Right?
Yeah, well, I'm very aware of it. For me, everything speaks to me. Every kind of item has a smell, has an odor. I know when I go somewhere, I don't have to be looking at it. I know something's going wrong. I can smell it instantly. I'm the first person to smell the odor anywhere that I go, always. It's a bad thing. Most people are not aware, but they're harming themselves in every possible way. I mean, in terms of real food, we got taught that you had to do a 5-minute something, which is nonsensical. What's the difference? You're going to live that half hour, whether you're chopping a vegetable up or not. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And you can live without it. And my mother used to buy organic frozen food and then put it in the microwave. And I'd be standing there, tears pouring down, going, please, Mom, let me just bake it for you. Please, let me just make a salad for you. No, organic frozen food in the microwave. I mean, really, it can't get worse than that. Well, it could get worse, but it was pretty bad. Very sad.
Well, I feel like we've only really just scratched the surface. There's lots more that we should be talking about.
Well, we touched on almost all the stuff that I usually talk about. I could be very specific on some things, or talk about some alternative methods, but I don't recommend anything in particular. I give people possibilities for their circumstances. So it's hard to just, I could have my list of alternatives and say, oh, there's this, that, and that. I mentioned a couple, but overall, it depends on people's circumstances. I don't, and also, as I said, the terrible thing is it's not covered by insurance, and that really harms people. The fact that it can cost a little. I mean, I remember saying to my insurance company in year one, I'm going to save you thousands because I didn't even know how much it cost back then. I saved them $150,000. I didn't have chemo and have radiation. A lot of money saved. I said, could you cover my supplements? They're only, what? Well, actually, it was a lot of money. But I started filing them in my taxes. This is my unreimbursed medical expenses. And I believe that with all my heart. And again, that's something I would take to the Supreme Court, although who knows what they would do. But truth is, these are the things that have kept me alive over these years. I'm still here, despite everything. And it was amazing, really. I mentioned that the doctor just recently said to me she thinks someone with chemical sensitivity shouldn't do chemo. I can't believe it. I never heard it in all these years. Talking to so many, hundreds and hundreds of doctors, nobody ever said anything. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But, I also think it's a sad thing. But I think most medical people are very narrow-minded. They're trained not to ask questions. They're trained to memorize and do stuff a certain way, and they don't have a chance to think. Someone like me, all I do is think. This is my job. I just read journals. I ask questions. I think about things. I talk to other advocates. It's my work.
Speaking of insurance, it sounds to me you had basically access to all the medical help you could get. What about people that don't have insurance, or people that are out of work, people that are on extremely limited income? What would be a way for them to get started, considering that money is very tight?
It's very difficult. I mean, I think the first and best thing they can do is clean up their food and stop buying packaged food and start eating real fruits and real vegetables. That's affordable. They can join a buying club. They can go to a farmer's market. They can find a local farm. They have those things called CSAs where you sign up for a basket of fresh food. A lot of supermarkets carry organic. And there's a list from the Environmental Working Group, which is ewg.org. And they can check and see what are the least sprayed fruits and vegetables and buy them non-organic since, if they can't afford it, and buy the ones that are critical as organic. Be physically active. That doesn't require any money. And, be less stressed by deep breathing. I really believe that makes a difference. There's all sorts of breath patterns that can be done. And there are some hospital services are free when they have an integrative medicine department. Sometimes you can access acupuncture at no cost, yoga classes at no cost. That's worth trying. Otherwise, our system is dropping the ball for people, and it's a very sad thing.
Is there a place in your website that addresses the maybe the low-cost solutions to helping with people with cancer that don't have insurance?
We have a lot of links on our website, and in the breast cancer community, they're very organized, and there are groups that pay various other bills so that you can use your money for cancer. But in other cancers, not so much. It's very hard to get funding. But there are always local funding groups that may help, or organizations that will do a local fundraiser. Overall, the system's it's not good enough. There's no question. People can get on Medicaid. It's only going to cover conventional treatment. And so people are going to be stuck. And I've talked to people who are stuck, who said my insurance or my coverage or my whatever will only pay for chemo. They won't pay for the natural approach. I don't know what to do about that because we don't fundraise, and that's millions of dollars. It's just not possible for any one group. But we do have links that show the groups that are locally, that are, some of the groups, and there's a group in every area.
I have a controversial question for you. Speaking of big fundraiser and big organization, I mean, the Cancer Society is probably one of the biggest, and yet, in my opinion, they're not doing their job. You're doing a much better job educating people that they are doing. So what's your take on that?
Most large charities end up a business, and they've done some good things, but overall they have a lot of money. They have more than half $500 million on reserve. Personally, I think it's pouring out. It's raining heavily, and they've got a lot of money on hand, but they don't do as much as they could. When you really try to find out what the services are, there's not so much. They've been the go-to for many years. It's like all the major organizations are going to be slow to change. They're mainstream. That's just what they're offering. I've been critical on an individual basis. It's a top-down organization. So your local chapters don't really decide anything, and they don't offer a lot of services. They do interact, and there's very good people who work for them who are deeply caring, but overall I don't think they accomplish anywhere near as much as they could. And they, they're all about fundraising now. So is the American Heart Association, the Lung Association, the Diabetes, they're all the same. When they get too big, they just have to keep themselves going. That's why I said I don't want to turn any Appleseed project into a group that has to fundraise all the time in order to keep going. I just want us to do what we're doing because we're successful. We're reaching people with no money. I mean, we have never gone, 1 year we went over 100,000 in the money we had, but we spent it. We offered more scholarships to our conferences that year. And that's what we do. If we have money, we just give more scholarships to the conference. I don't want a conference where only the people who can afford to come. I want it to be people who need help. And that happens every year. But yeah, it's troubling. I can't change that. What I did do, and I know this is kind of interesting really, someone sent me a page about food, nutrition from the American Cancer Society. It was a terrible page. It was one of those old things that said, oh, eat whatever you need, as many calories as you can, pile on to this, pile on to that, it just was wrong. So I contacted them. I have a friend there in the higher up echelon, and I said, who's the nutrition go-to? So I found out who she was, and I contacted her. I sent an email. I said, I'm shocked that this page is still here, and it's so bad. She told me after the vacation she was on, she said, oh, we change the page every 10 years. I said, wait, this is the internet. You could change it every week. You could change it every day. So then I got an email saying we're making changes along the lines you indicated. I don't think it was me really, but they were making those changes sooner maybe than they would have. But I was happy. It happened. They took the page away. But it's very hard to take things off the internet. It exists somewhere anyway, and some people find it. But for the most part, that page is gone. Because, when I go to a website and I see that kind of information, I write to them. I send an angry email. What are you doing? All the wrong information. Here's what you should say. So I do that all the time. I mean, I'm an advocate. My work is not just giving information. It's making complaints. I call it ranting. I'm a good ranter. And I rant pretty much every day somewhere, We have to.
Yeah, I'm a good ranter too. Well, you have to. I mean, especially in cases like you. I mean, at least as far as I know, I'm healthy. So, but I can't help but feel sometimes outrage at some of these organizations that seem to only focus on fundraising and not really on getting proper information out and not helping people as much as they could, considering the amount of money. I mean, considering whatever they call it, the president or CEO is earning hundreds and thousands of dollars every year, and yet that money should
millions.
Yeah, and that money should go back to the people. Not, that's why people send money to them so they can help other people. Instead, they keep all the money, and then a very small trickle goes back into the community. It's just not right.
It's very troubling. And, I see this all the time in the sense that it's like two separate worlds. So the mainstream world comes out with all these articles about clinical trials of drugs. And there's never any discussion in the announcement about the adverse effects. I'm really big on adverse effects because I follow that. I care about that a lot. And then the other world, the alternative world, is completely separate. So when they talk about integrative oncology, I've said it should be on the same page. You should have the treatment, and you should have on the other, right here, page to page, should be what else you can do, what you can do in addition. And that doesn't happen. So I critique everything, including the National Cancer Institute, about those kind of things. You can't just say, oh, yeah, take chemo, you do this, you do that. You also take these supplements, you also exercise, you eat more fruits and vegetables, you relax. All those things, they're evidence-based, but somehow they've got them on the other side, and it's ridiculous. And that just keeps going. So when people look for information, they have to look in two different places to find anything. And they're like, I said from the beginning, I feel like, okay, here's one and here's the other. They're turned away from each other because they don't talk. And who's in the middle? Oh, the patient, but, who cares? I mean, it's just a crazy situation, and it's continued over the years. But my voice, that's why I call myself like the bridge, I'm in the middle. I'm doing things to say, wait, it's not one or the other, it's both. It's everything. We need to be aware of all this information and make better choices. Information is very powerful. I stand by that. The Appleseed Project reaches a lot of people, and that is my pride and joy. And now it's really good. I think so.
Thank you very much, Anne, for being on the Low-Carb Paleo show. And as we say in Texas, à votre santé, y'all.
Yeah, thanks for being with us, Anne. It's been super.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.